Hare Krishna, all devotees. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Text 11. Bhurini bhuri karmani shotvayani vibhagasha atah sadhu atra yat saram samudritya manishaya bruhi bhadraya bhutanam yenatma suprasidati.
Hare Krishna. There are many varieties of scriptures, and in all of them, there are many prescribed duties, which can be learned only after many years of study in their various divisions. Therefore, O sage, please select the essence of all scriptures and explain it for the good of all living beings, that by such instruction their hearts may be fully satisfied.
Text 12. Sut jana si bhadram te bhagavan satvatam pati devakyam vasudevasya jato yasya chikirshaya.
All blessings upon you, O Sutta Goswami. You know for what purpose the personality of Godhead appeared in the womb of Devaki as the son of Varahadev.
Text 13. Tanushushrush mananam arhasi anganu varnitum yasyavataru bhutanam shemaya cha bhavaya cha.
O Sutta Goswami, we are eager to learn about the personality of Godhead and his incarnations. Please explain to us those teachings imparted by previous masters, acharyas, for one is uplifted both by speaking them and by hearing them.
Text 14. Apanna sansviti ghoram yannam vivusho ginan tat sadhyo vimuchyet yad bhibeti swayam bhayam.
Beings who are entangled in the complicated meshes of birth and death can be freed immediately by even unconsciously chanting the holy name of Krishna, which is feared by fear personified.
Text 15. Yad pad shanshryasut munya prashmayana sadhya punanti upsprishta swardhun apot anusevaya.
O Sutta, those great sages who have completely taken shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord can at once sanctify those who come in touch with them, whereas the waters of the Ganges can sanctify only after prolonged use.
Text 16. Kova bhagavatastasya punya shlokedya karmanaha shuddhi kamo na shunyad yashaha kalimalapaham.
Who is there desiring deliverance from the vices of the age of quarrel? Who is not willing to hear the virtuous glories of the Lord?
Text 17. Tasya karmani udarani parigitani suribhi bruhina shadadhananam lilaya dadatha kalaha.
His transcendental acts are magnificent and gracious, and great learned sages like Nara sing of them. Please therefore speak to us, who are eager to hear, about the adventures he performs in his various incarnations.
Text 18. Athakhyayi hare dhimman avatar katha shubha lila viddhat swaram ishwarasyatma mayaya.
O wise Sutta, please narrate to us the transcendental pastimes of the Supreme Godhead's multi-incarnations. Such auspicious adventures and pastimes of the Lord, the Supreme Controller, are performed by his internal powers.
Text 19. Vayam tu na vritpyam uttam shlok vikrame yashinvatam rasgyanam swadu swadu pade pade.
We never tire of hearing the transcendental pastimes of the personality of Godhead, who is glorified by hymns and prayers. Those who have developed a taste for transcendental relationships with him relish hearing of his pastimes at every moment.
Text 20. Kritvan kila karmani saharamen keshava atimartyani bhagavan gudha kapatmanushaha.
Lord Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, along with Bhagavan, played like a human being, and so masked, he performed many superhuman acts.
Text 21. Kalim agatam agyaya kshetre yasmin vaishnave vayam asina dirgha satrena kathayam sakshana hare.
Knowing well that the age of Kali has already begun, we are assembled here in the holy place to hear a great length of the transcendental message of Godhead, and in this way perform sacrifice.
Text 22. Tvamna sandarshito dhatra dustram nishti tirshatam kalim satva haram puncham karanadhar ivarnavam.
We think that we have met your goodness by the will of providence, just so that we may accept you as captain of the ship for those who desire to cross the difficult ocean of Kali, which deteriorates all good qualities of a human being.
Text 23. Bruhi yogeshware krishne brahmane dharma varmani swam kashtam adhuno pete dharam kam sharanam gataha.
Since Sri Krishna, the absolute truth, the master of all mystic powers, has departed for his own abode, please tell us to whom the religious principles have now gone for shelter. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Hare Krishna. Please forgive my mistakes. Hari Bol. Dandavat pranams.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much, Mataji, for that lovely recitation. Very, very nice. So many wonderful verses for us to meditate on. So yeah, we will, as I mentioned at the beginning, today we are covering chapter 1, text 18. So I'll just recite the Mangalacharan and then we can start. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajata Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyavacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna. So, as usual, I've just got a PowerPoint presentation ready for this verse, and then a bit later, about 8:40 after the class, we will have a very nice bhajan, and at some point, we'll also be just announcement and reminder about the current drive to distribute Chaitanya Charitamrita sets. So we'll mention a bit more about that later. I'll just share the presentation. Okay, hopefully you can all see that. Okay, so Srimad Bhagavatam 1:1:18. Just recite the Sanskrit. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Atakya hi hare dhiman avatara katha shubhaha lila vidadata swairam ishwarasyatma mayaya. And translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The translation: O wise Sutta, please narrate to us the transcendental pastimes of the Supreme Godhead's multi-incarnations. Such auspicious adventures and pastimes of the Lord, the Supreme Controller, are performed by His internal powers. The purport. So a very small purport this time. So for the creation, maintenance, and destruction of the material worlds, the Supreme Lord, Personality of Godhead Himself, appears in many thousands of forms of incarnations, and the specific adventures found in those transcendental forms are all auspicious. Both those who are present during such activities and those who hear the transcendental narrations of such activities are benefited. Okay, so first point mentioned by Srila Prabhupada here in the purport, that he's basically saying the Supreme Lord, as we know, He's in charge of the creation, maintenance, and the destruction of the material worlds. So for that purpose, He has specific incarnations. And obviously, particularly for these three things, we know that we have the three guna avatars. So the three incarnations that represent the three modes of nature. And so we have Lord Brahma, who is, of course, responsible for the creation. And because of that, he is the incarnation presiding over the mode of passion. Then we have the maintenance of the material world, which is obviously done by Vishnu, who is presiding over the mode of goodness, or specifically mode of pure goodness, Shuddha Sattva. And then we have Lord Shiva, who is in charge of destruction and therefore presides over the mode of ignorance. So we understand these are the three incarnations in charge of creation, maintenance, and destruction. But they are in charge, they are presiding over these three modes, but it doesn't mean they are in those three modes. It doesn't mean, for example, Lord Shiva is in the mode of ignorance. We understand, obviously, he's the greatest Vaishnava. Obviously, we had Shivratri recently, so we've heard a lot about him recently in various places. So, we understand he's not in the mode of ignorance, but he presides over it. So, and then obviously, similarly, Lord Vishnu is beyond, he's the Supreme Lord, he's beyond the three modes, but he's in charge of that. So then here, obviously, those are just three incarnations, but here that we can read here many thousands of forms of incarnation. So, and is explained in the scriptures, Srila Prabhupada explains that just as we cannot count the waves in the ocean, we cannot count the incarnations of the Lord. So just like the uncountable waves just keep coming, sort of endlessly. Similarly, the Lord is appearing again and again constantly in so many different incarnations. And obviously, as we will read ourselves as we get a bit further into this canto, we will come across a list, of some of these incarnations. And then, as I'm sure we know, that list ends with a statement, Krishna's to Bhagavan Swayam, that, after having listed all of these incarnations, then we understand, where do these incarnations come from? They come from Krishna, and Krishna is the supreme. So many incarnations just in even just in that section, just in one chapter of one canto, there's so many incarnations, but still, as we see here, many thousands. So we only know about a tiny fraction of these incarnations. So the vast majority of the incarnations, we don't even know anything about them. We don't know their name, what they look like, what are their specific features, what is a specific, task they came to this world to achieve. We don't know anything about all these incarnations. We just have this tiny snapshot of these different incarnations. And as I said, ultimately, there are limitless incarnations. So the next point that I kind of highlighted is that they have transcendental forms. So many different forms, but they're all transcendental. That means they're all spiritual. They're not made of matter. So they are nothing like the material bodies that you and I have. And obviously we understand what is a transcendental form. We always hear Sachidananda Vigraha. That is Krishna's form. The form of the Lord is Sachidananda. So we understand that it's eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss. So the same can be said for all of these incarnations. They are all transcendental. No matter what form they take or what kind of species they may seem to appear in, even not so long ago this year, we had the appearance day of Varahadev. So obviously we understand the boar incarnation of the Lord. So the boar is generally a very unclean animal, just sort of hanging around in the stool, eating stool, as Srila Prabhupada always talks about. Just in a sort of filthy environment. But then the Lord appears in the form of a boar. But then it's amazing, it's transcendental, it's beautiful, it's described in the Bhagavatam, how beautiful this form of the boar was. So it's explained that even though he may appear in seemingly, not really, but they seem like animal bodies, but although he appears like that, but he is fully auspicious, fully transcendental, and fully beautiful as well. So he can appear, and it's described actually, like I said, in the scriptures, it said there are limitless incarnations, and also it's described that the Lord appears in every species. So again, we know a few like Matsya, Kurma, Varaha, Nishingadev, well, he's half-line, but generally we know a few species where he has taken that appearance, but it's described he has appeared as an incarnation in every species. So again, there's so many that we don't know about. Vast majority we don't know anything about. So, basically, he's appearing within every species. He's giving his mercy to every species in that way. Okay, so, and the final point I highlighted here is that all of these transcendental forms, they're completely auspicious. So that kind of relates to the point I just mentioned with the example of Varahadev. So whatever kind of form he appears in, whatever the situation that he appears in, whatever is happening, it's all auspicious. So even when Nishingadev appears, he appears from the pillar, as we all know, to save his devotee, Prahlad Maharaj. But then what happens next from a material point of view is very gruesome. It doesn't seem very auspicious from a material point of view. We've all seen probably the painting in the temple room at the manor. From a material point of view, at first glance, it doesn't look very auspicious. It looks very frightening, very gruesome. I remember that is what I used to think before really getting involved in Krishna consciousness, coming to the manor sometimes as a child. I think I was pretty freaked out by that painting. But yeah, when we understand from a spiritual point of view, then we understand whatever situation, whatever is happening. You know, he's appearing to kill Hiranyakashipu. He's appearing to kill all these demons. So it doesn't seem very auspicious from a material point of view, but then from a spiritual point of view, we understand it's completely auspicious, you know, because that's one of the reasons he explains in the Bhagavad Gita why he appears to annihilate the demons, annihilate the miscreants. So that is what he's doing there. And then obviously also by being killed by Krishna, that is a kind of mercy as well. And we understand that the demons, those who are killed by Krishna, they receive one kind of liberation. There's different kinds, but they do receive one kind of liberation. And we understand another example. It's in this same canto as well. Again, we will read when we get to that point, the prayers of Bhishmadev, and very beautiful prayers. And in one prayer, he mentions that all those soldiers who saw the transcendental form of Sri Krishna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, they attained their original spiritual bodies after they died on the battlefield. They attained their swarup. So again, on a battlefield, doesn't seem very auspicious, but then we understand from a spiritual point of view, very, very auspicious. And I mean, the whole Bhagavad Gita is spoken there on the battlefield. So again, it is very auspicious in that way. Okay. So okay, this is as I said, the very short purport this time. So this is the end of the purport. So both those who are present during such activities and those who hear the transcendental narrations of such activities are benefited. So I'm mainly going to focus on the second part, the hearing part, for I guess the rest of the class. Because for us, I guess the first one doesn't really apply so much. I mean, as far as I don't know, some of you may be few devotees, Nitya Siddhas from the spiritual world in disguise, but obviously we don't know that. So I'm assuming that none of us, were present during these pastimes that we're hearing about. But here, basically the point is, it doesn't matter. Even if we're not present there, just by hearing, he says here, we're benefited in the same way. So yeah, it's a very helpful message there for us, that even though we're not present during these pastimes, but we can still be benefited just by hearing them. Because it's not like they are stale, static pastimes. No, they're living, breathing pastimes, living, breathing narrations. And when we hear them, then we can still connect to them. It's not like a history book that we just read all these old things and they're just history and that's it. No, these are pastimes that we can actually connect to, and even we can actually witness them. If we reach that perfection, then we can even witness these pastimes for ourselves. So it just shows how powerful this hearing is. We hear it time and time again, the importance of hearing. So because of that, I decided to focus on hearing for the next few slides. Okay, so basically I'm just going to go just through a series of few verses from the CC, which describe this very nicely. This transcendental nature of the Lord's pastimes. So this is Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, chapter 17, text 134, where it says, the holy name of Krishna, his body and his pastimes cannot be understood by the blunt material senses. They are manifested independently. So yes, pretty self-explanatory that we cannot understand these things via material senses. So what does it mean? That means we need spiritual senses. We need to spiritualize our senses. And actually, yeah, maybe we can have some devotees reading these verses to make it a bit more interactive. Could we maybe have a volunteer just to read this slide, please? Anybody?
I can read, Prabhu.
Sure, thank you, Mati.
Krishna's holy name, transcendental qualities, and transcendental pastimes are all equal to Lord Krishna himself. They are all spiritual and full of bliss.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so here it's saying that all these things are equal. Krishna's name, Krishna's qualities, Krishna's pastimes are all equal to him himself, his form. So the holy name, so Nam, transcendental qualities, Guna, pastimes, Lila, and the form of Krishna himself, Rupa. So all these four things are identical, they're non-different. And it's even described his associates, his entourage, the associates that appear with him when he descends to the material world, they are also identical in one sense, they are no different. And as it says here, all of these things, they are all spiritual and all full of bliss. As we discussed earlier about Sachidananda. So, and I'm sure we've heard all these points before. For example, we're chanting Hare Krishna, and we understand the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is identical, is non-different to Krishna himself. When we are chanting his names, he is there. Krishna is actually present. He has, as it said, he has invested his full potency within his holy name. He is fully present within his holy name. Similarly, his qualities, we hear about his amazing qualities, and in that way we're associating with Krishna. And then we hear about his pastimes. Again, we are associating with Krishna himself. And if we have the personal association of Krishna, then of course we have the association of Krishna. So yeah, it's just amazing on the spiritual platform how all these things are the same, they're non-different. Okay, maybe another volunteer to read this paragraph, please.
Hare Krishna, can I read?
Yes, please, Matati.
Therefore, material senses cannot appreciate Krishna's holy name, form, qualities, and pastimes. When a conditioned soul is awakened to Krishna consciousness and renders service by using his tongue to chant the Lord's holy name and taste the remnants of the Lord's food, the tongue is purified, and one gradually comes to understand who Krishna really is.
Okay, thank you. So, yeah, so here it's saying, repeating the point mentioned on one of the previous verses, that material senses cannot appreciate Krishna's holy name, form, qualities, and pastimes. So then here it's saying, obviously we need to spiritualize our senses. How do we do that? Here it's explained, rendering service. And how do we do that? Very simple, it's described here. Just use our tongue. That's the first thing, is to use our tongue. And then what do we do with it? Two things, chanting and having prasadam, honoring prasadam. So these two things, if we chant the holy name and taste prasadam with our tongue, then the tongue becomes purified. And as it's described in Nectar Instruction, yeah, it's described how the parts of the body, they're in a line, and so we have the tongue, we have the belly, the stomach, we have the genitals, and it's described, if we control the tongue, then all of the others are automatically controlled. So that's why the first thing we need to do is to control the tongue. So very simple process, and by doing that, we are spiritualizing our senses. Okay, so one more devotee, please, to read this, please.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Can I read it?
Yes, please, Prabhu. Thank you.
The mellows of Lord Krishna's pastimes, which are full of bliss, attract the Gnani from the pleasure of Brahman realization and conquer him. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you. So, okay, so another point, continuing this discussion about pastimes. So here it's saying that these pastimes, they're so amazing, they're so blissful, that even the Jnani, who is fully absorbed in Brahman realization, so he has already overcome material senses. He has already gone beyond the modes of material nature, and he's achieved Brahman, which we understand is the first of the three platforms within God realization. So they've already reached that point. So they are, as it's described, they're self-satisfied. But even those people, even though they're self-satisfied, when they hear Lord Krishna's pastimes, they experience this bliss from hearing those pastimes, then they also become attracted to go beyond Brahman realization. They become attracted by bhakti, and they become devotees. So yeah, it's very powerful. So yeah, okay. So then this is the next verse in the CC, which is actually quoted from Srimad Bhagavatam. And maybe another devotee could read this, please.
Can I read, Prabhuji?
Yes, please, thank you.
Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto my spiritual master, the son of Vyasadev, Sukadev Goswami. It is he who defeats all inauspicious things within this universe. Although in the beginning he was absorbed in the happiness of Brahman realization and was living in a secluded place, giving up all types of consciousness, he became attracted by the most melodious pastimes of Lord Sri Krishna. He therefore mercifully spoke the supreme Purana, known as Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the bright light of the absolute truth and which describes the activities of Lord Krishna.
Okay, thank you so much. So yeah, so now here is the glorification of Shukadev Goswami, who, as we know, recites the Bhagavatam. And here is explained that he also was initially absorbed in Brahman realization. He was on the Brahman platform, and he was in his mother's womb for many years, and then as soon as he came out, he immediately left home, and yeah, he was already on that platform of Brahman realization, and he had no interest in that life, in that family life. He was already completely renounced, completely detached from that. So he immediately walked off, and of course his father Vyasadeva is calling after him that, where are you going? You literally just, we've been waiting for you to take birth for years, and then as soon as you come, now you're leaving straight away. So obviously also, Vyasadeva wanted Shukadev Goswami back, because then obviously he can then pass on the Srimad Bhagavatam, so that then Shukadeva Goswami would in turn recite the Bhagavatam. So he needed to attract Shukadeva Goswami back, attract someone who's completely self-satisfied. How do we do that? As we mentioned in the previous verse, the pastimes of Krishna is so beautiful that they attract such a person. So Vyasadeva, he sent some devotees to go after him, and basically gave them a couple of verses. So they're basically going to the forest after him, and they're calling out these verses to attract him. And then sure enough, when Shukadeva Goswami hears these two beautiful verses, then he's just amazed, and then he wants to hear more of this. And so I can't remember one of those two verses right now, but here's the other one. This is one of the two verses that attracted Shukadeva Goswami, even though he was already on the Brahman platform. So the verse, as it says, here is Srimad Bhagavatam 3:23. So the translation: alas, how shall I take shelter of one more merciful than he who granted the position of mother to a she-demon, Putana, although she was unfaithful and she prepared deadly poison to be sucked from her breast. So very amazing pastime. I'm sure we've all heard it before, the pastime of Putana. And it just shows, this pastime just shows how incredible Krishna's mercy is. And this is what attracted, hearing about Krishna's qualities, this is what attracted Shukadeva Goswami, that he wanted to come back and hear more from his father, to hear about this beautiful pastime and this amazing quality of mercy that Krishna showed. And the reason why this particular pastime shows that mercy so well, and why it shows such a special sort of level of mercy, is that we understand that Krishna generally, what does he look at when we do something? He looks at our intention, our motive, and he doesn't pay so much attention to the actual action itself. Sometimes we try to do something with the best intention, it doesn't work out, or there's always some fault in the material world, as we know. So yeah, sometimes that part doesn't work out, but Krishna is so merciful. He just looks at what our intention was behind it, and he accepts that whatever tiny thing he finds that is positive, he focuses on that, he magnifies that, and he doesn't pay so much attention to the negatives, and that is his mercy. But in this case, he went even beyond that, or you could say he completely reversed that, because what was Putana's intentions? Her intentions were bad. Obviously, she wanted to try and kill Krishna. So she had completely wrong intentions, but only her action of breastfeeding Krishna, that action is externally positive, even though the intentions were completely bad. So in this time, again, Krishna only focused on the good. So he ignored the bad intentions and just focused that for that little moment, she was acting like a mother to me, and therefore, I will give her my mercy. And then obviously she lost her life, but then she was, granted this incredible position of being like a mother to Krishna. So yeah, as it says here, how can we possibly take shelter of one more merciful than that? It's incredible. So I've just got a few more things just to mention, and just regarding hearing, and this one is specifically about the Bhagavatam. So this is from another scripture by Sanatana Goswami, the Brihad Bhagavatamrita. So here again, it's saying a similar point about hearing these pastimes. It says, honor the Bhagavatam and other scriptures that tell of this devotional service. hear from them regularly about the Lord's pastimes. For when those narrations enter the holes of your ears and you relish them with love, they will swiftly award you the Lord's abode. So, it's very powerful here. Again, showing the importance of hearing these pastimes, and it goes as far as to say that if we hear them and relish them, then we actually go back to Godhead. We achieve the Lord's abode. So we can achieve the highest perfection by just hearing these pastimes. That's it, just hearing pastimes. But obviously it says here with love. So obviously then we have everything else in addition to hearing in order to get us to that point. We have the chanting, we have, chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. We have so many different things, so many different forms of devotional service that we get involved with to develop that love. But here it's saying ultimately, if we have that love, then hearing is all that is required to go back to Godhead. So okay, this is the last one. It's another quote to do with this hearing. And I just put this in here because obviously Gopurnim is coming and it mentions about Lord Chaitanya here. So this is Madhya Lila 287, where it says that if one does not understand in the beginning, but continues to hear again and again, the wonderful effects of Lord Chaitanya's pastimes will bring love for Krishna. Gradually one will come to understand the loving affairs between Krishna and the gopis and other associates of Vrindavan. Everyone is advised to continue to hear over and over again in order to greatly benefit. So here it doesn't, you can't get more clearer than that about the power of hearing these pastimes. So we heard the point came up a few times that in our materially conditioned state, it's hard for us to understand, with our material senses, it's hard for us to understand these pastimes. Sure, not sure, Papa, but this verse itself is saying that even if we don't understand when we're hearing these things, and obviously this is specifically about Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, but the same principle applies to Krishna's pastimes, that doesn't matter if you don't understand, just keep hearing and hearing. And then the potency of those pastimes, of hearing those pastimes, that will gradually, affect us, that will gradually influence, change our consciousness. And as it says here, gradually bring love to Krishna, and gradually we will understand these pastimes that before we were unable to understand. So this point we always hear about, in order to approach Radha Krishna, in order to understand Radha and Krishna, we need the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda. We need the mercy of Gaur Nitai. So this is the importance of trying to be absorbed in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, hearing his pastimes and trying to connect with him and pray for his mercy in whatever way we can. Then through Lord Chaitanya, then we can get that understanding. Otherwise, these confidential pastimes, especially mentioned here between Krishna and his intimate associates, will never be able to understand. So it's something very, very wonderful, very special that Lord Chaitanya has given us. So in these days leading up to Gopurnim, and definitely on Gopurnim itself, we can try and increase our absorption in Lord Chaitanya, think about him, hear about his pastimes, and amazing things can happen, as we've discussed. Okay, so that was the presentation, and as I said, in a few minutes we will have a budget, but just
Prabhu, thank you for a wonderful discourse.
thank you.
And highlighting the fact that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is most merciful. We, as part of the Sankirtan team, humbly request all the attendees on this session to please consider getting a set of Chaitanya Charitamrita from themselves. And if they have one, they can sponsor a set. The manor has a target of 300. So we would humbly request all devotees to please help us in this. You will please Prabhupada and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu both at the same time by doing this. Thank you very much for considering this request.
So thank you so much for that, Prabhu. And yeah, so yeah, given Prabhu did ask me to mention that, so thank you, Prabhu, for bringing that up anyway. So yeah, Divinam Prabhu would, humbly like to encourage all the devotees to help with this effort to distribute sets of Chaitanya Charitamrita. And yeah, so it's said that with each set, you also get this nice, well, you get the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, basically in the wooden form. Let me just see if I'm able to share. Divyanam Prabhu just asked me to share the poster on here. Otherwise, we can maybe put it on the group if it's not already on there. Just give me 1 second. Yeah, so this, as it said here, this drive to distribute Chaitanya Charitamrita called Be a Gardener, Sow the Seeds of Bhakti. And yeah, we can see here £75 for collection or £85 for delivery. We can see here various languages are mentioned, so we can get it in all these various languages. And as I mentioned, with that set, you get a free wooden replica of Lord Chaitanya's lotus feet and audio book. If you can see that is the lotus feet of Mahaprabhu. But yeah, I'm sure we can have that shared on the group for our reference. And yeah, so yeah, as I mentioned just at the end, how incredible Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes are. So even if we're not distributing to others, we may not have a set of our own, then it's so important for us to have that in our home. It's very auspicious, as we mentioned in the class about these pastimes. So yeah, just having these sets, just as we talk similarly about Srimad Bhagavatam, just having these sets in our house, it's so auspicious, it's so wonderful. And it's basically having the CC in your house, just like having Bhagavatam in your house. What do they say? That is just like having Krishna himself in your house. The different cantos represent the different parts of Krishna's transcendental form. So similarly, CC is like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, like we read. There's no difference between the name, form, pastimes, and qualities. So there's no difference between Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his pastimes. So if we have the pastimes in our house, then we have Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in our house. So yeah, it's very amazing. Okay, so that is all I wanted to say. I don't know if anyone has any questions or comments that they want to share, just quickly. Yeah.
A very quick one, Dandavat Pranams. But thank you for a nice class and nice references to CC again. Perhaps you could just clarify a little bit, just so that people don't get further confused. Lord Brahma, I think you mentioned, maybe I misheard you. You mentioned Lord Brahma presides over mode of goodness. I think it's Lord Brahma is mode of passion.
Yeah.
And secondly, that Lord Brahma is actually a Jivatma in most instances, and only a guna incarnation in the instance that there is not a qualified jiva to take that position. I think so. Perhaps you could just clarify that a little bit, Prabhu.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, thank you. That's perfectly right, Prabhu. So yeah, generally, as we understand, Lord Brahma is not a specific person, but it's a position, a title, and it is usually, as Prabhu mentioned, occupied by a living entity, by a jiva. But in the situation where there is no one in that universe qualified to take that position, then the Lord himself will incarnate to take that position. And yeah, so that does happen. It's described that generally every living entity, when they fall down to the material world, the first position they take is the position of Lord Brahma, and then they go further and further down the species. So yeah, generally the position of Brahma is taken by a jiva. So yeah, that is correct. Thank you, Prabhu. Okay, any more comments or questions before we move on to the bhajan? Okay, fine. So okay, so I understand that there will be the bhajan, Vibhavari Shesha, correct me if I'm wrong, sung by Harsha Mataji, and Mamta Mataji will be reading the English translation. So, are you ready for the bhajan?
Could you share the lyrics on the screen?
Yeah, okay, I'll just share it. Just give me 1 second. Okay.
Can I start now, Prabhuji? Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam, Prabhuji. The Vibhavari Shesha was written by Bhaktivinoda Thakura, and the book name is called Kalyana Kalpataru. The translation of the song. The night has come to an end, and the light of dawn is entering. O Jiva soul, arise and give up your sleep. Chant the holy names of Lord Hari, who is the giver of liberation, the enemy of the Mura demon, the supreme enjoyer, the all-attractive one, and the horse-headed incarnation, Hayagriva. Lord Hari, Krishna, incarnated as a half-man, half-lion, Narasimha. He appeared as a dwarf Brahmana named Upendra and is the killer of king of Vraja, Nanda Maharaja, and is blackish in complexion. He is the slayer of the Putana witch and the destroyer of the demon Kaitava. All glories to Lord Hari, who appeared as Lord Rama, the son of King Dasharatha. He is the darling of Mother Yashoda, the giver of pleasure to the cows, land, and spiritual senses, and the protector of the cows. He is the Lord of the Vrindavana forest, the gopis' beloved, the lover of Radhika, and the most beautiful personality in all the worlds. As Ramachandra, he brought about the end of the demoniac king Ravana. As Krishna, he stole the older gopis' butter. He stole the younger gopis' clothes while they were bathing in the Yamuna. He is a cowherd boy of Vraja and the protector of the cowherd boys. He steals the hearts of all and always holds a flute. Lord Krishna is worshipped by the best of yogis and is the son of Nanda. He removes all the fears of the inhabitants of Vraja. He is the color of a fresh rain cloud, and his form is enchanting. When he wanders about playing his flute, he looks very charming. He is the son of Yashoda and the killer of King Kamsa, and he sports in the rasa dance among the groves of Vraja. Krishna engages in this rasa dance underneath the Kadamba trees, and he resides in the forest of Vrindavana. He increases the ecstasy of his devotees. He is the reservoir of all love and is the transcendental Cupid who uses his flowered arrows to increase the loving desires of the gopis. He is the pleasure of the gopis' hearts and the abode of all wonderful qualities. Lord Krishna is the life of the river Yamuna. He is always absorbed in amorous pastimes And he is the moon of the gopis' minds, which are like the chakora birds that subsist only upon moonlight. O mind, obey these words of mine and sing the glories of Sri Krishna in the form of these holy names, which are full of nectarian mellows. Hare Krishna. This song is usually sung in Mangala Arati. Thank you all.
Hare Krishna. My humble obeisances to everybody. Vipaveri Shesha Aloka Pravisha Nidra Chari Ut Jiva Bolo Hari Hari Mukunda Murari Rama Krishnaya Griva Nasima Vamana Srimad Sudana Rajendra Nandana Shyama Putana Gatana Kaitapa Sadhana Jayata Sarati Rama Yashoda Dulala Govinda Gopala Vrindavana Nandara Ra Gopi Priya Jana Radhika Ramana Bhuvana Sundara Bara Ravana Takara Makana Tashkara Gopi Jana Basari Rajidara Kala Gopa Vrindapala Chitta Hari Pamsidari Yogindra Bandana Srinandanandana Raja Janabaya Navina Nirada Krupa Manohara Mohana Bamsi Bihari Yashodanandana Kamsani Sudana Nikunjara Sabihasi Kadamakanana Rasaparayana Vrindavipina Nivasi Ananda Vardana Vimaniketana Pulasara Jojagana Gopakanagana Chitta Vidodana Samasta Gunagana Nadama Yamuna Jivana Kali Parayana Manasa Chandra Chakura Namasudarasa Kavu Krishna Jasa Rakho Vachana Manamura Vipaveri Shesha Aloka Pravisha Nidra Chari Ut Jiva Bolo Hari Hari Mukunda Murari Rama Krishna Hare Kripa Rama Krishna Hare Kripa Rama Krishna Hare Kripa Hare Krishna.
Haribol, beautiful singing, Harsha Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji. Haribol.
Very nice recitation by Mamta Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Yes,
Thank
Hare
you,
Krishna so much. That was very, very beautiful. Perfect way to end the session. We were just hearing the whole class about the pastimes of the Lord. And then, this perfect bhajan, just mentioning so many different pastimes, just one after another. So beautiful. So yeah, it's a perfect way to end. So yeah, thank you so much for that bhajan. And thank you for everyone for coming to another session of Chat Plus. And yeah, we hope to see you again tomorrow, where we will continue this discussion of chapter 1. So yeah. Hare Krishna, thank you for listening.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna,
Hare
Prabhu.
Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Krishna, thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Beautiful singing. Hare Bo. Thank you. Nice class, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare